How many times have you been judged for a mistake without anyone stopping to see your true greatness? How many stories were buried before they even had a chance to bloom, simply because someone decided to judge only by appearances? In the corporate world, and in life, it's not uncommon for appearances to scream louder than substance. Today, you're about to dive into one of those stories that proves that sometimes what looks like a failure is actually the beginning of a silent revolution. The protagonist of this story is Anna, a young financial analyst who had just joined one of the largest multinational technology companies. Humble, focused, and extraordinarily intelligent, Anna didn't draw attention with grand speeches, expensive clothes, or flashy performances in meetings. She believed her work would speak for itself, and for a long time it did, until destiny decided to brutally test her resilience. During a strategic end-of-quarter meeting, where numbers and projections were presented directly to the CEO, a small slip-up in a report spreadsheet caught attention, an incorrect value in a single cell, a human error, the kind anyone could make. But for Leonard Parker, the CEO known for his arrogance and thirst for perfection, it was unacceptable. In front of the entire board, Leonard didn't just correct Anna, he humiliated her. He questioned her competence, her capabilities, and even suggested that perhaps she was too young to be there. Cutting phrases echoed through the room. It's mistakes like this that sink companies. If you can't manage a simple spreadsheet, how do you expect to survive in this market? Shame washed over Anna like an icy wave. It felt as if all the stories she had dreamed of building in that place were crumbling before her eyes. What Leonard, and everyone else didn't know, was that Anna had already done far more for the company than anyone could imagine. Months before that fateful meeting, when the company was quietly facing a financial crisis, Anna, still just an intern, spotted inconsistencies in the internal control system. Recognizing the looming risk, she spent countless nights on her own initiative, creating a new financial management model, safer, faster, and more transparent. She didn't seek recognition. She didn't ask for a raise. She simply presented the project to the tech department, which, lacking better options and pressured by urgency, implemented the system, without even mentioning her name in official meetings. What happened next was historic. Thanks to the new system, the company reduced losses, optimized investments, and, within a year, recorded an 18% growth in net profit. Millions were saved. Contracts were secured. And ironically, Leonard Parker was promoted to CEO partly because of that financial recovery, without ever knowing who was truly behind it. That spreadsheet mistake? It was nothing but a human error. But the invisible revolution Anna had sparked? Now that was the real story worth telling. Fate, however, has its own ways of balancing the scales. Anna didn't have to wait long. An investigative report on invisible young talents within major corporations caught the attention of the local media. Curiously, Anna's case was one of the highlights. The article detailed how a young analyst had created a system that saved a corporate giant, and how she remained ignored within her own company. The impact was immediate. Investors began asking, who was the mind behind the turnaround? Leaders from other branches demanded Anna's presence in upcoming strategic meetings. Cornered, Leonard had no choice but to publicly acknowledge her contributions. That cold apology, delivered in a room full of applause for Anna, was the first brick of a new bridge she would build. Now, as Director of Innovation, a position created especially for her. This story teaches a lesson that goes far beyond corporate politics or professional advancement. It shows that our greatness doesn't depend on immediate recognition. It shows that even through the harshest humiliations, we may be planting seeds that will bloom in the most unexpected places. And most importantly, that every apparent mistake carries within it the potential to reveal a strength we didn't even know we had. So, next time you're judged for a misstep, take a deep breath. Remember stories like Anna's. Not every mistake is the end. Sometimes it's just the beginning of something extraordinary. Now I ask you, what's your story? Have you ever been underestimated? Have you ever lived through a moment that seemed like the end but turned out to be the greatest new beginning of your life? Share your story in the comments, because who knows, maybe your story can inspire someone not to give up after their first stumble. And of course, if this message touched you in any way, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and join us as we learn, grow, and transform not only our own lives, but also the lives of everyone we meet along the way. On a seemingly ordinary morning, one that promised little but delivered much, tension cut through the air of the meeting like a hot knife through butter. Leonard Parker, the CEO, barely hid his disdain as he scolded Anna in front of everyone. Her mistake? An irrelevant detail in a spreadsheet. But for Leonard, it was enough to suggest Anna was too inexperienced to handle high-level financial matters. Sadly, this scene is far more common in corporate stories than we like to admit. How often have you seen or heard of young talents being underestimated because of their age? It's as if experience were measured only in years lived, not in capability or impact. Leonard, trapped in this outdated mindset, forgot one golden rule. Competence doesn't scream. It acts silently. And it's precisely within these stories of humiliation that the most inspiring turnarounds are born. If you ever feel judged by your appearance, your age, or your title, remember, great minds like Mozart, Malala, and even Elon Musk were discredited before they shone. Life is made up of stories where first impressions blatantly lie. And speaking of lies disguised as truth, just wait until you find out what Anna's past was hiding. Few knew it, but behind that calm and discreet demeanor, Anna carried a resume that would put many corporate veterans to shame. While most people saw just another young analyst, the stories she was writing behind the scenes were worthy of a bestseller. Anna had crafted, line by line, the financial system that saved the company from a massive financial hole. But as is often the case in the hidden gears of corporate life, the credit was given to the team, and her name was buried deep in the meeting minutes. This reality is more common than it seems. How many brilliant projects are born from the hands of those no one expects? It's like that old story of ghostwriters who pen entire books for others to sign. If you've ever gone through something like that, having your work recognized only in the shadows, know this: it doesn't diminish your value. Great minds like Nikola Tesla's also saw their ideas borrowed by others. And it's in these stories of invisibility that true strength is forged. Even in silence, Anna never stopped planting seeds. Each improvement, each optimized process was a new root firmly placed in the soil of excellence. And that's the real difference between those chasing empty recognition and those building a true legacy. Because at the end of the day, those who truly make a difference don't need to announce themselves. Time reveals everything. And speaking of revelations, what happened days later was simply unexpected. When humiliation knocks at the door, most people respond with anger or discouragement. Anna, however, did something different. She understood that the best response to prejudice isn't direct confrontation, it's silent excellence. Instead of letting public exposure break her, she focused on delivering results so undeniable that even her doubters had to listen. These are the stories that shape great leaders, those who transform obstacles into stepping stones for greatness. You know that old saying, revenge is a dish best served cold. Anna didn't even waste her time with that. Her mind operated on a different frequency. She knew that the best revenge is solid, undeniable success. And if you want a real-life example of that, look at names like Oprah Winfrey, who was once fired for being unfit for TV, only to later revolutionize communication. Stories like these show that when you focus on building instead of destroying, the universe conspires in your favor. Anna continued perfecting her work, redesigning reports, fine-tuning processes, optimizing routines, all quietly. She understood that the real game is long-term, and those who play for the future write stories that stand the test of time. While others laughed or overlooked her, Anna was silently planting the seeds for the greatest turnaround of her career. And like every great plot needs a twist, it was during an internal audit that the truth finally came to light. Ah, destiny. It may take its time, but it never fails to deliver justice in the best stories. During what initially seemed like just another formal audit, the sharp eyes of the board stumbled upon something unusual. The impressive metrics, the streamlined financial flows, the above-average performance, everything inevitably pointed to one name, Anna. And at that moment, the facade of the team effort crumbled. There was no hiding it anymore. Documents, development spreadsheets, and emails provided undeniable proof that the mind behind the company's financial revolution was that same young analyst who had been underestimated so many times. This scene mirrors so many life stories where talent is pushed to the background until it bursts through like a spring breaking through the soil. If you've ever doubted the silent impact of your daily efforts, remember this: recognition may take time, but when it arrives, it's both inevitable and thunderous. The directors exchanged uneasy glances. How could they have ignored such genius right under their noses? And worse, how to deal with the shame of realizing their greatest innovation came from the person they had least expected. It was then, in a natural turn of events, that they sought to understand who had truly led this transformation. And soon, a key figure was about to step forward, someone who knew the full story behind the scenes. Amid skeptical glances and whispered conversations, Rodrigo, the IT director, raised his hand. And what he brought to the table was the kind of testimony that flips the script in many stories. With the calm that only someone with the truth on their side can have, Rodrigo presented internal documents, archived conversations, and meeting minutes, all proving that Anna, from the very first draft, had led the creation of the company's new financial system. There, before everyone, the traditional hierarchy's facade began to collapse. Rodrigo explained that due to unwritten image maintenance policies, the company had chosen not to highlight the authorship of someone so young and newly hired. After all, to many in that room, talent was something that was supposed to climb the ladder, slowly. How many similar stories do we see in everyday life? If you've ever felt your merit was swallowed to preserve someone else's vanity, know this: it does not diminish the greatness of what you have built. Examples like Katherine Johnson, NASA's mathematician who revolutionized flight calculations but spent years behind the scenes, prove this truth. The board, grounded in Rodrigo's evidence, had no choice but to face reality. Each piece of proof was like a brick building Anna's true story. And as the CEO sat sweating in silence, the entire atmosphere in the room began to change. It was as if everyone already knew, without needing words, that something much greater was about to happen. When the truth comes knocking, there's no use trying to hide. And in that meeting, there was nowhere left to run. Leonard, the CEO who had humiliated Anna days earlier, found himself cornered by his own actions. Before the board, he was forced to do what few leaders have the courage to do: publicly admit his mistake. That moment, as uncomfortable as it was necessary, marked the turning point in a story that would transform the entire company. Seeing the wasted potential, the board decided to act swiftly. Leonard was temporarily suspended for reflection and internal values restructuring. Meanwhile, Anna, once seen only as the girl with the spreadsheet, received a proposal that would change her trajectory: to lead strategic innovation. Stories like this remind us that sometimes life tests us to reposition us exactly where we always belonged, and that every humiliation, when well managed, can be the fuel for an extraordinary rise. The tense atmosphere that once hung heavy now began to fill with hope. Anna, calm and firm, was already envisioning what she could build moving forward. The promotion was just the beginning. The real challenge would be breaking down much deeper barriers within that old organizational culture. And it's in this kind of resistant, tradition-laden soil that the most inspiring transformation stories are born. Taking on the new role wasn't just a promotion for Anna, it was a chance to finally rewrite many stories within the company. Now, with real autonomy, she brought to life projects that had previously been blocked by outdated hierarchies. Anna implemented talent recognition policies for young professionals, created internal open innovation programs, and fostered an environment where new ideas could bloom without fear. In a short time, creativity and respect became the new air the company breathed. Imagine walking into a room where it no longer matters whether you're 20 or 50. What matters is what you deliver. That's exactly what Anna built. And if you want to apply something similar to your daily life, start by recognizing the small talents around you. A great book to help with this is Leading Change by John Cotter, a practical guide for anyone who wants to create true stories of transformation. Anna understood that true leadership isn't about holding power. It's about empowering others. And the most beautiful part? The ripple effect of this change reached far beyond the company walls. Young people who had once been invisible started to shine, to grow. And as Anna reaped the first fruits of her courage, an old acquaintance, full of hard-earned lessons, was preparing for a reunion that would open new opportunities for everyone. Sometimes it takes a fall to finally see what arrogant eyes refuse to notice. Leonard, the once arrogant CEO, spent a lot of time reflecting during his suspension. When he returned, he was no longer the same. In a rare move for corporate stories, he sought out Anna, apologized to her personally, and proposed something unprecedented: the creation of an internal program to encourage young talents, with Anna as the lead mentor. A small gesture at first glance, but one that carried the weight of a true shift in mindset. Anna, having gained her maturity the hard way, accepted. Not out of vanity, but because she understood the impact she could have on countless other stories, on professionals who only needed a real chance. After all, Who better to guide the next generation than someone who had stared prejudice straight in the eye and won? And if you lead a team today, here's a practical tip. Create real mentorship spaces. I recommend the book, Mentoring 101, by John C. Maxwell, a practical guide for transforming hidden talents into protagonists. The seed had been planted, and the first fruits were already starting to emerge. The environment, which once valued only titles and appearances, was now opening up to new perspectives, new ideas, and new stories of success. But the greatest lesson was yet to come, realizing that true leadership is not measured by the size of your position, but by the magnitude of the transformation you can inspire in others. If there's one thing Anna's journey taught, and taught in a way no one would ever forget, it's that true leadership isn't about commanding, it's about inspiring. It's not an authoritarian tone that brings lasting results, but the ability to build stories where every person feels part of something greater. Anna showed that respect isn't demanded, respect is earned, and the foundation of that is the courage to recognize talent, even when it's still in its raw form. The most powerful transformation. Stories always stem from a simple yet profound principle. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things when someone believes in them. If today you want to be that kind of leader, whether in a company, a project, or even within your own family, start by listening more than speaking. I highly recommend a must-read, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, by Patrick Lencioni, which teaches how to build high-performance groups based on genuine trust. Anna became much more than a strategic innovation manager. She became a silent symbol that the deepest changes happen from the inside out. And in the end, it's these stories that define who is truly worth following. But believe me, the way it all started with that seemingly insignificant spreadsheet is what makes her journey even more fascinating. And now I ask you, how long will you let other people's prejudice define your worth? How long will you accept that sideways glances, harsh words, or rushed judgments dictate the size of your dreams? How many stories like Anna's still need to happen before we finally understand that talent has no age, title, or appearance? Because here's the truth. Every single day, in invisible corners of the world, incredible talents are being discredited. Extraordinary people are being labeled by what they wear, how they look, or what society thinks they should be. But let me remind you of something you might already know but may have forgotten. The greatest transformation. Stories almost always begin when someone is underestimated. Anna could have bowed her head. She could have accepted the humiliation and allowed that meeting to be just another brick building a wall of insecurity around her. But she chose differently. She understood that every attack, every scorn, every attempt to belittle her was actually life's way of pushing her further. Because in the end, what really matters isn't what they do to you. It's what you do with what they've done to you. How many times have you been in Anna's shoes? How many times have you felt small, invisible, disbelieved? I bet that if we gathered all those stories, we could write an entire encyclopedia. But look, the final chapter is still blank. And the best part? You get to decide how it ends. If you learned anything here today, then you already know. Every humiliation can be the push you need for your breakthrough. Every disregard can be the spark that lights the fire of your courage. Every no can be the invitation to build an even greater yes. It's not about ignoring the pain. It's about turning it into fuel. It's about taking every harsh word and using it as a stepping stone. It's about understanding that the most powerful stories are written by those who refuse to accept the role others try to impose. Now I truly ask you, from the bottom of my heart, are you going to use this to your advantage? Or are you going to let the opportunity slip away? Because listen, life is a master at giving signs. And sometimes, the humiliation that hurts today is preparing you for the victory that will move you tomorrow. Sometimes the disregard that makes you cry is the exact push you need to step onto the stage that was always yours by right. But for that to happen, you have to make a choice. Stay down or rise and make history. Tell me in the comments, have you ever gone through something similar? Have you ever been underestimated and turned the situation around? I really want to hear your story too. I want to discover those stories of resilience, of hidden brilliance that one day illuminated everything around them. And let me tell you, your story might be the missing piece to inspire someone who is on the verge of giving up today. It could be the spark that reignites hope in someone who no longer believes. It could be living proof that talent, strength, and greatness often reside where least expected. Never underestimate the power of your story. Sharing it multiplies strength. And of course, If this message touched you in any way, if it stirred something deep inside you, if it brought back memories, tears, or smiles, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and come with us to learn, grow, and transform not only your life, but the lives of everyone you meet. Here, we don't just tell beautiful stories. We build bridges, tear down walls, and carve paths where no one believed it was possible. Every video, every word, every lesson is an invitation for you to be the change the world needs. To remember that your origin does not define your destiny, and that no one has the right to limit the size of your dreams. So, are we going together? Shall we write new stories? Let's show the world that greatness isn't measured by appearances. It's hidden in the invisible, the unlikely, the unimaginable. I believe in you, and I truly hope you believe in yourself too. Because life's too short to waste trying to fit into the boxes others created. Live large, dream big, fall if you must, but rise bigger than before. Because every fall can be the beginning of the best part of your story. And remember, no matter how much they try to diminish who you are, what you carry inside can never be stolen, never erased, never weakened. Only you can decide what to do with what's been planted in your soul. So go ahead, write, share, inspire, transform, and never ever let the ignorance of others dictate the greatness of your stories.